President Biden today announced a new round of sanctions against Russia following that country's massive invasion of Ukraine. The president echoed
We've now sanctioned Russian banks that together hold around $1 trillion in assets. We've cut off Russia's largest bank, a bank that holds more than 1/3 of Russia's banking assets by itself, cut it off from the U.S. financial system. And today, we're also blocking 4 more major banks. That means every asset they have in America will be frozen.
The president echoed other world leaders condemning what he called Russian President Vladimir Putin's unprovoked action and vowed to bolster forces to protect NATO allies in Eastern Europe. And joining us is Congressman Mike Quigley, a Democrat from Chicago's North Side. He is also a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and co-chair of the Congressional Ukraine Caucus. We did invite all Republican members of Illinois' congressional delegation. None accepted our invitation. Congressman Quigley, thank you for being here. First of all, Ukrainian President Zelensky tonight says he is target number 1. He believes he's going to be deposed. What is the latest you're hearing about the situation on the ground in Ukraine tonight? And I believe we don't have your audio.
Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah. Oh, first of all, the intelligence on this has been outstanding, and you probably read the administration has released much of this intelligence, including the so-called hit list, a kill list, and capture list. Obviously, as President Zelensky would be at the top of that list, and I think they recognize that. Honestly, I don't want to know where President Zelensky is or where their government is. I do. They have plans to operate, if necessary, outside of the capital. But I think the president's right. He is a target. It's the reason that Kyiv was targeted by Putin in the first place.
And as you heard, the president announced these new financial sanctions today. Is there any reasonable expectation that they could deter further action?
Well, I think they're an important component of deterrence and will have a long-term impact. As I assess what they did today, you know, it was a pretty dramatic tranche, unprecedented in some concerns. But the fact of the matter is, Russians are at complete war with Ukraine throughout the entire country. So at this time, it makes sense to sanction all the banks, sanction Putin himself and all of the oligarchs that are close to him. I believe it's time for lack of better expression, crippling sanctions across the board, including removal of Russia from the SWIFT banking system, now not allowing them to communicate a necessary function to operate in the fiscal world.
And that removal from the SWIFT banking system is being blocked by some of the EU member countries. You mentioned sanctions on Putin himself and his family. The president has not gone there yet. Do you believe the president should go there now?
You know, I do. I mean, this is war, and you know, I believe Putin should have been the first target. I don't know necessarily who's blocking the efforts there. You know, it's safe to surmise that that's the case. But I don't think there's time. Certainly, it's not necessary to wait any more time for the next tranche. You know, we have to ask ourselves, what does Putin care about? And you asked the question, were sanctions enough? Frankly, I think we have, in the final analysis, what does Putin care about? He wants to reassemble the former Soviet Union, and he wants NATO out of Europe, or the United States out of Europe, and NATO out of Eastern Europe for sure. I think it's time to give him the opposite, and I think the troop posturing and additional supplies to our Eastern NATO allies is prudent.
And you mentioned those supplies to the NATO allies, but U.S. troops will not go into Ukraine. NATO troops will not go into Ukraine. Zelensky said tonight he knows that they're going it alone here. Is there any military assistance or weapons assistance that you believe Ukraine might receive?
Well, you know, since 2014, they had, you know, 200 million. So, and you know, most recently, a significant amount more. So I think it's still possible. It's more difficult under war conditions, but I do believe it will happen. They'll get additional military assistance, lethal and non-lethal, as time goes on, both from NATO and the U.S.
How do you assess Ukraine's ability to withhold this invasion, to resist a full and complete takeover in the short term and the long term?
Sure. I mean, obviously on paper, they're overmatched. Again, when I read the intelligence on this, first thing that struck me is this isn't a trial run like last spring. Putin is going to go, and he did. and that this would be something like a modern day blitzkrieg. Modern day in the terms of the warfare is a little bit different, the cyber attacks and so forth, but the blitzkrieg is what you're witnessed in the last 24 hours. You know, a dramatic attack from all sources, air, ground, and the sea. It'd be very tough for Ukraine to withstand this. I believe they have the extraordinary fighting spirit. They're a heck of a lot better armed forces than they were in 2014, but again, on paper, simply overmatched, not in spirit, but by the full range of options, including from the air that the Russians have.
And this invasion is impacting the world economy, the U.S. economy. There have been talks of possible further cyber attacks in the U.S. from Russia. What do you think the fallout is for the United States right now due to this invasion?
You know, I think it's what Americans need to wake up and recognize. We're not insulated from this in any way. You know, I saw the polling on this, which is disturbing, that Americans didn't want us to be involved at all. The fact of the matter is you can't turn off the TV and the news and this will go away. Putin and Russia have already attacked this country in the modern warfare with cyber attacks from the 2016 election on, solar winds, the pipeline, Colonial Pipeline. You know, but that's just the beginning. If he really wants to continue this, or if anyone thinks he won't retaliate for these sanctions or U.S. involvement, you know, they're mistaken. So I think there's a real threat to our banking system, our grid system, and so forth. And Putin has also made noises, and he seems to have become even more extreme about some of the old Cold War threats coming back to life, putting hypersonic missiles in Cuba and Central America. The economic thrust, I appreciate. The war itself will make the flow of energy and resources out of Ukraine and Russia very, very difficult. There are precious resources there that are involved with the production of everything from aerospace to semiconductors. So we have supply chain problems now. They will almost certainly get worse.
A lot of interconnected issues here. You know, the last 24 hours have been very unpredictable. What do you think the next days and weeks look like?
I think, unfortunately, more of the same. You know, as Putin advances, it's clear that his intention was decapitation, attack Kyiv, remove the government, put a puppet government in place, and sort out the rest of it as time goes on. You know, I think he imagines what will probably happen is he would have a quick takeover of the Ukrainian military. That was certainly his plan. And then have to deal with what would probably be an insurgency after that. But again, I don't want to rule out the efforts of the Ukrainian military, but it will be a horrible onslaught, the one that we've already started to watch of very innocent people.
Troubling time right now. And as you mentioned, Ukrainian President Zelensky says there are already over 100 Ukrainians dead in combat, he believes, right now. All right, Congressman Mike Quigley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.